Hi, everybody, and welcome to Weekly Manga Recap First Try. So, it is December the 29th of 2021. It is our last Weekly Manga Recap of the year, and there is basically no new manga this week, so we are going to be taking a look back at the year of Weekly Manga Recap and what a year it has been. I'm Nick, here alongside Chris.
That's me. It has been a very interesting year, I will say that. Out of recap, some would say a horrendous year, in which a lot of bad things are happening, and a lot of the things we thought would be handled are not.
Let me check my calendar, because I feel like you said this last year.
Yeah. In the recap, I think we've had a fantastic year. Weekly Manga Recap celebrated 10 years of being a podcast. We had a ton of really great recommendations. We'll get to that when we talk about that, but I think we had a phenomenal year when it came to recommendations. And I think for the most part, a lot of the manga series we covered were also, I don't know if there are necessarily any phenomenally great or as many phenomenally great series as I would have hoped, but I think all of them were at least good and at least had very good patches to them.
Yeah. It's been, I think, a very momentous year.
Yes.
In a lot of different ways for us. I know that the two of us in our own lives have made some strides forward. But in terms of just how we relate to manga and stuff, yeah, we had a lot of really good times on this podcast talking about stuff that entertained us. We branched out, I think, more than we ever had before, and experienced rewards more than punishment for it. Although some of the stuff that we encountered, we would never have put ourselves through if we had not put ourselves out there. And it made for good times for our audience, at least. So,
and I will note, I think we also did a great job of having more recommendations this year than we had in previous years. Like, I'd have to go back and actually double check numbers wise, but I'm pretty sure we got a lot more series in as recommendations this year than we have in like the past couple years.
According to this, we did 6 more than each of the last 2 years. Each of the last 3 years, actually, it looks like.
That's what I was going to say. So, I feel like we got a lot more in this year, which I'm pretty proud of.
Yeah, so, and amazingly, I still had a really difficult time picking out my worst series.
Yeah.
There were a lot of really good ones we had, so.
All right, well, how do we want to start this, Nick?
I don't know. I've come into this deliberately blind for one particular section.
Okay.
So I don't know how we want to organize the rest of this.
I guess we'll talk about how this podcast worked, I guess, in a nutshell. And we'll talk about the series with it. Or no, we talk about the recommendations first. I'm sorry.
Okay.
We'll talk about just the series we recommended. And we'll kind of very quickly go through these. We'll probably elaborate on them a lot more when we actually get to that part. But I guess we start with the series we covered at the start of the year, which was Golden Kamuy, which was a very, very long series that I don't think either of us got tremendously far into because it's like 400 and some odd chapters.
Well, I cheated for this one.
Oh, you watched the anime, that's right.
Right, which happened to end its most recent season at the point where the manga volumes stopped being published on Viz. So I was like, all right, I'm done. I just kind of like perused through some of it to make sure. I was like, okay, no, that did happen in the manga and stuff. And I wanted to see how some of the things that came across differently and everything. But I did not have to read all of that.
Yeah. So. But I think that was a series we both enjoyed. Although it got a little bit in the reads, so to speak, at times with some of its explanations that at times I still think about and like my eyes glaze over instinctively to be like, ooh. Then we covered Hina Change.
Yeah, which was I think that I had difficulty coming to terms with the fact that it was bad when we talked about it. Like I was trying to be like, well, but you know, like, and that it was like, no, it was bad. It was problematic and did not come to terms with how problematic that was. That was the series about the guy and the girl who could switch bodies between each other, and one of them basically used that ability to rape the other. Well, I think actually both of them did it in some ways to the other because of the way things that they used each other's bodies for. So,
yeah, I will say this. This was a very queer year for the podcast in terms of recommendations. We discussed a lot of series with queer topics in them. Hina Change was the first of them and not the best.
No.
we got better at picking it. We got better, then we got worse. Then we got better again afterwards.
Pretty much, yeah. Go ahead.
I was just going to go move us on to Kaguya.
That was what I was going to do.
Yeah. Kaguya-sama Love is War, which was, I say, a good series sometimes. I know some people in here love this series, and I'm happy for you. I'm reading the series again, just out of interest, and I'm like, yeah, I'm still not in love with the jokes of this series. I still not a huge fan of the jokes. But
yeah,
those emotional moments, phenomenal. S tier.
I still don't like the way that the narration goes through things, because like that the joke is that everything is played up, and over the top, and so the narration is like making you realize, like, like the way that things are explained in Yu-Gi-Oh, when in reality it's like, and then they played a card. It's like, but you see, this is why it's so impressive and stuff, and it's like, and that is why she did not compliment him.
I'll also say one other thing. Kaguya-sama, garbage, F tier name. This series should be exclusively known as Love is War, because that's the actual fucking premise of the series. I don't think we even talked about when we talked about the podcast. It's like the subtitle in the same way like Shokugeki no Soma was like Food Wars, like, but at least Shokugeki was like a specific term to it. Kaguya-sama, garbage name, should only ever be referred to as Love is War. I just want to stress that for the record.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, strong thoughts. Anyway, curtains up, I'm off.
This was, I think, out of all the series that we read, like, if it weren't for the title, I would have had no idea what it was about. This was about the high school drama club, the guy who joins it, and I think that it showed a tiny bit of promise early on, and then just completely failed to be really gripping in tackling its subject matter. Despite the fact that I think that there is a lot there that you could do, it just left very little impact. And I cannot tell you a single specific thing that happens in it. They have a contest, and there are other schools in the contest. That's about it.
It did not run particularly long either, so there is that going for it. But by the end of it, I finished reading it and said to myself, yep, Skip Beat is still the best acting manga out there.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Then we talked about the bones of an invisible person.
So this was one that I also had to remind myself what it was. But
the moment I hear the plot, I'm like, it comes back. But yeah, the title does always throw me for a loop. I say this was what, 9 months ago is when we read this.
It was. This is the series about the girl who murders her father using her ability to turn invisible, and the entire series after that point is essentially her coming to terms with what that means, in terms of her guilt, how she feels about it, how she's going to, get through the rest of her life having, killed her dad, and also happened to be our second example of really solid queer representation. Kind of. It's never explicitly stated, but it probably happened. So, but it ended up being pretty damn good. It's just a hard thing to like get through because it's tackled some very, very rough subject matter.
Yeah.
So.
Although I would say definitely better than Hina Change. We talked about Four Nights of the Apocalypse then, which is sort of one of those quasi recommendations. It was like at 12 chapters at the time. It was more so a recommendation so we could consider adding it to the podcast.
It was along the lines with how we did Ghost Reaper Girl last year.
As for Four Knights itself, it was good at the time. I really think we were like maybe like 1.5 arcs into the series at that point. I've continued following it since then. And there's a very distinct 4-person group. And at the time we had read it, only 2.5 of them were kind of introduced into the story. So, I would say we did not add it to the recap, but it is something that's always an option that's out there.
Yep.
So, good stuff. Then we covered what was something I was so excited to talk about because of the way our Discord hyped this thing up, which was Dear Sa-chan. And, man, if you want to talk about the biggest disappointments of 2021, it's that Dear Sa-chan was not nearly as awful as I was hoping it was going to be, man. I
mean, it was bad.
It's bad. But it could have been much worse. It's like the opposite of the fucking Pedro Pascal Wonder Woman meme where it's like, it was good, but it could be better. I was like, it was bad, but it could have been worse.
Yeah. I mean, it was weird because like I felt like people saw all the beats in it and they kind of expected us to have much bigger reactions than we did. And then we were like, yeah, it's pretty fucked up. Yeah, it's pretty bad.
All right. And we dusted our hands and went off.
And then we got the stuff that we got really into. It was like, the way that the legal proceedings in this series work really don't make any goddamn sense.
No. He still pays him all that money?
That doesn't make any sense. What the fuck? And after that, we did Undead Unluck to catch up on that and to add it to the recap. People thought I was going to say we would be talking about Jujutsu Kaisen because they voted on it, and then I was like, no.
You pulled a classic Nick move.
I have decided that this is no longer a democracy. After I gave it to you, kind of. And it's been part of the recap ever since, and it's been very good. So no regrets on my part there. So
yeah, absolutely. Then we talked about Black Cat, which was I think this was around the time we took Ayakashi Triangle out of the recap. So we wanted to talk about Yabuki in a different setting. We talked about his lead action adventure series from like the early 2000s, and it was fine.
Yeah,
it was fine. There's not a lot to really. Yep. All right. So we talked about Qualia the Purple next.
Yeah, this was the weird series that involved the girl who could see people as robots and how that somehow turned into her friend / love interest / everyone else's love interest, as it turned out, using this to somehow access multiverse versions of herself and live life billions of times over to try and save her friend. It got really weird. That's about it.
It was definitely an interesting series. For a series that I guess is kind of famous as well for being like this very particular kind of Yuri series. I'm definitely glad we read it. It was an interesting series. I think we had an interesting discussion about it. So yeah, I can't say I loved it. I can't say I'm ever going to go back and read it, but I'm definitely glad we checked it out.
Yes.
Then fucking Credo Prime had to stick his big dumb face in and suggest Love Stage. And we read it.
And we read it, and it was bad.
In a great way. In a phenomenal way. It was everything I wanted Dear Sa-chan to be. Where I was like, this is a dumpster fire.
Minus all the incest that happens at the end.
But there's definitely a lot of it. Was like every chapter is a fucking mess. What is this thing? And we only got it because of Credo Prime's interesting taste in manga.
From 10 years ago, I guess we'll give Credo a little bit of credit.
I don't want to apply context to this. I think it's better without it. Yeah, and it gave me a stroke.
Yeah, I guess that he was trying to defend it by saying, it's like, no, it's not as good as I remember. It's like, all right, yeah, okay. Yeah, this was our most boy love series yet. I want to say, and it was insanely garbage. Yeah. So yeah. Then we covered Pokemon Adventures, HeartGold, and SoulSilver, which I think is probably my biggest disappointment of the year. Because, like, all right, let's get back into some Pokemon. It's really nothing to it. It's very short, and the parts of the game that it does focus on are just not very interesting. And yeah.
It happened to be like sort of an in-between part that really felt like it existed mostly because they were like, we have more legendaries we have to showcase from the last gen.
Look, there was another remake series. You have to make a manga tie-in about them, okay?
Yeah.
So
then we had a good friend of the show, Austin Yorsky, on to talk about Destroy All Humanity, They Can't Be Regenerated, a manga about the competitive Magic the Gathering scene of the mid to late 90s.
Yes, very specific, but as it turns out, a rich history to draw from, because as many people that not many, but several people that we've talked to who were playing Magic the Gathering at the time can tell you, no. This all was actually like what happened.
Yeah.
This is how people reacted to it.
Turbo was just a thing. You just dealt with it. It was obnoxious, but...
And eventually the series develops into a harem romance, which I still don't really know how I feel about that. But it was a fun, nostalgic nerd trip to read. So,
and then we talked about Alice in Borderland, which
is probably my favorite episode that we did this year. This was when we kind of had a weird schedule during the week, so we just dedicated an hour on the week to talking purely about it.
Yeah.
And really says like a pseudo bonus episode. And looking back, I went back and listened to that before we did this. And while Alice in Borderland is probably not one of my favorite manga that we covered this year, it is definitely one of the ones that's going to stick with me for a long time. In terms of like, okay, I'm going to remember a lot of parts of this, and it's, I guess, going to be one of the more influential, things that we've covered on me, at least.
Yeah.
So.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think this was definitely one of the bigger pleasant surprises of the year. Then we took a look at The Way of the House Husband, which was a highly requested series, and Nick did not care for it much. I mildly enjoyed it, and it's still a lot of people's one of their favorite series. So you know what? I guess it all works out for them.
Am I out of touch? No, it's the listeners who are wrong. Then we talked about my pick for Sadistic September this year, which was History's Strongest Disciple, Kenichi, which was an odd experience to go through because I guess that I got what I wanted out of it, but at the same time, I'm still upset that I was right that it was bad. And I guess it was look, there's better action martial arts shonen series out there that aren't as horny as this one. So
there's going to be, I don't know how I could create it, but I want to do a bonus podcast that's just the top 10 of the dumbest backstories, just so I could put fucking the stupid pin and Odin's backstory in there, because I still.
And then he got it out of a prize tumbling machine.
And there wasn't actually a deep emotional connection behind the promise. It was something the kid shouted from a car while another one, or to a car as it was driving away. Oh, man, what a waste. Anyway, we read Boys Run the Riot then as part of LGBTQ month.
Yeah, or however you pronounce that. Yeah, this is a great manga.
Yeah.
Had a fun time reading it and was drawn into it in a way I don't think I was drawn into anything else that we read this year. So,
yeah, this was definitely a really, really pleasant one. And I think we'll probably come up when we start talking about our favorite recommendations, so we'll save it for there.
Maybe.
A series that probably doesn't show up in any of those, though, is Monkey Peak. But I might be saying that prematurely, because Monkey Peak, while not being a piece of classic literature, does have both things listed in the title. Except eventually I found out it doesn't, and they were all people in monkey costumes, except there was a real legendary monkey of the mountains that they run into at some point. So it was a great series. 10 out of 10. I got
No. No. Hang on. Hold on. Truth in advertising. That's all I care about.
I'm just saying, Liar Liar had a liar in it. 10 out of 10 movie. That's how I judge everything based off of. The Shawshank Redemption, there wasn't really a redemption in there, so I'm giving it a 0 out of 10. I don't know what to tell you. Anchorman, there was anchor men and women. Bad title. I wanted that implies one anchorman. There was many.
Should have been anchor people.
Yeah. Anchor group of persons.
Let's make it as awkward as possible. Anchor collective.
Yeah.
Oh, then we covered. So I believe on this one, I actually put it to a vote for people in the chat, which was, all right, should we continue LGBTQ month or should we continue Halloween horror month? And people were like, both. So we went. Or actually, no, I think that was how we got Monkey Peak.
Yeah,
I put up.
Yeah, because it was
then,
it was a sort of queer. It was something that was specifically just queer. Then it was back to horror, and then we met in the middle.
Might have been a nice triangle, much like the Tricornered window, much like the night beyond the Tricornered window.
Ooh.
Which we at least had some interesting discussions about, I guess. But
I think I'll be more interested to continue reading this. I think there were parts of this that could have been a particularly interesting series. It just never really quite got there for me. And then ended up being this series that felt like it distinctly lacked atmosphere.
Well, you could try watching the anime adaptation if that might be more your speed. Ooh. Can we just skip this one? I feel like that's.
Then we talked about Imperial Guards. Then we talked about Hell's Paradise Jigokuraku.
Which I came to the conclusion, all right, I just don't like this mangaka. I don't like their way of doing things, and I'm glad that I have come to terms with that. So.
I did like this series.
Sorry, Imperial Guards, we were promised saber-toothed tiger armies, and we didn't really get that, and even when we did, it still sucked. So yeah. There you go.
I liked Hell's Paradise. I wish I could have read more of it, but unfortunately, because there's too many nipples in it, fucking Apple's like, you can't have that on this fucking app. Meanwhile, Game of Thrones has fucking giant tits in fucking half the first episode seasons, and that's allowed to run on HBO's app. So, whatever. Double standards, but it's fine. I'm not bitter.
So, okay.
Then we read I Think Her Son Is Gay. And guess what?
Yes.
You know what? Maybe. It's pretty good.
It was pretty fun. It was cute more than anything else. Okay, well, so that's 22 series that we covered this year. I had a really difficult time saying what were the 3 worst because there were definitely some bad series that we covered. Mm-hmm. But nothing that we covered this year left me feeling, that really sucked. And I can't believe that I had to read all of that. There was some stuff that was, I had mixed feelings about. There was some stuff that was just kind of boring. And then there was some stuff that was bad, but that I had a good time reading or at least talking about it.
Yes.
So we did a thing where, we for our 10-year anniversary, our bonus episode was looking at the 10 best and 10 worst series that we have ever covered. And I don't think anything that we covered this year would make my 10 worst of all time. So
maybe my number one at like a low spot. But yeah, it's not, it was not that bad of a year. I think we ended up reading maybe a couple more mediocre or series we were just kind of okay on. But yeah, not a lot of like, oh, this is awful, I hate this series, which is it's great, you know? I think
Yeah.
works out really well.
So should we do like worst and then best, do you think?
Yeah, sure.
All right. So I will start us off with my number 3 worst, which
Just say it.
again, I have to explain. This is difficult, okay? So my number 3 worst was Monkey Peak. So
You're a monster.
uh, honestly, this might have been the series that made me the angriest because understanding what the appeal of the series was really did upset me, which was just like, okay, so people just like watching dumb idiots get killed. And that's you're going to get a lot of series and works in general like this, where it's just, slasher victims getting killed and you just delight in everyone dying, which I feel is just not good in general as an approach to writing a story. But in terms of the stuff that actually happens in the series, God, it's just so dumb. Like the people in this are stupid and the logic is really weird. Just the thing that sticks out in my mind the most is when the monkey, or one of the monkeys, poisons all the food in the cabin and delights in pouring out the water in front of everyone and getting them to chase after him. And then when they try and chase him down, he like action reload with a bow and arrow, and there are people who are like 10 feet away from him when he kills one of them, and they still don't reach him before he kills the other two. And then there's the poisoned tin cans of food, which are half poisoned because he only poisoned one flavor of the food for some reason.
That's what monkeys would do, Nick. Evil monkeys would just poison one of them, as they have a sadistic psychological torture feeling to them.
So it was bad, and I did not like it. Okay.
Yeah, there you go. My number 3 is Imperial Guards. This was just a series I can recall almost nothing about, and it'll disappear from my memory in about 4 months. And that's where it belongs. It was a dumb, bad series.
Yes. My number 2 worst is Hina Change. You might have listened to the episode and I think, weren't you kind of trying to defend it? Yeah, but sometimes with reflection, you look back and realize, oh, this was just kind of messed up. And really, if you were going to include the types of stuff that you go over in this manga, then there should be at least some exploration. I don't care how early the series was canceled, because it probably was definitely canceled early. There should have been some acknowledgement of how messed up some of the stuff in it is, and there isn't, which makes me think that the writer didn't realize how messed up a story that they were writing. And so, in hindsight,
Yeah, I'm right there with you. My number 2 is Hina Change as well. We mentioned earlier, this ended up being a year where we covered a lot of queer stories on Weekly Manga Recap, and I hope to continue that as a trend. And I'm thankful we read a lot more queer stories that weren't like this one, where it's a queer story about a bunch of queer characters feeling tortured and miserable, because that's not particularly the kind of story I really want to read that much. It's a bad series. It's a bad series.
Yeah, considering that, I mean, like, I think the first act of queer representation we got this year was a gay character deceiving the person they were romantically interested in, which is all sorts of red flags about some of the harmful stereotypes that there are surrounding gay and trans people. Is just bleh.
Yeah.
So, moving on from there, let's get back into some real garbage. Look, I know that I did not react incredibly strongly to this, despite everyone thinking that we would. But honestly, Dear Saw-chan probably is the worst series that we have looked at this year in terms of pure garbage fire that it is. And I had a really good time dunking on it. I don't have really any negative feelings towards it because it's so bad that I didn't even work up emotions about it. But it is bad, and it has a really bad ending. If I'm looking at it objectively and grading it purely off of how things play out, it's very bad. Okay.
But
That's Chris.
oh, I'm
No,
really
no, no.
expecting
That's
a
my number one.
Oh, okay.
Now,
You're insane. It's Love Stage. This thing is fucking garbage. Credo Prime, you picked a real goddamn stinker. On note for everybody, if you have forgotten, there is a page or a chapter where they warn you the UK is about to top, and you have to be warned about that because otherwise you might be horrified at that very concept.
And I'll tell you why Love Stage did not make my top 3, despite being absolute garbage. It did what it set out to do, okay? Which was to be a dumb boys love series with hot boy-on-boy sex. And it did that. And it had a relationship that was very badly written, but in the way that it set out to be. So, because I really didn't have negative feelings about it, I could not in good conscience put it on my list.
That's fair. I this was like the slam dunk easiest one in my mind. Love Stage was real bad. I'll be honest, Dear Sa-chan, if I did a top 5, probably wouldn't have even showed up on that. Dear Sa-chan was bad, but I think I'm really always going to be like, man, I really want to, like, I almost kind of enjoy it because it's like, man, I was hyping myself up for something horrendous. And I was like, this is just kind of bad, you know? In that way. It's sort of like the, like those middling Marvel movies. You're like, you know, they're fine. It's fine. This is the Thor Dark World of manga, basically.
This is the Iron Man 2.
All right, let's talk about the best series.
Turn around. Yeah, good stuff. My number 3 best series from this year is Destroy All Humanity. They Can't Be Regenerated. I really grokked with this series because I remember not too long after the series takes place in being a preteen, going to trading card shops, playing with strangers, doing weird different variations of Magic the Gathering and stuff. Gave me really strong nostalgia vibes. And I do appreciate that although it does use all real cards, that it does not bog itself down in the details of how the game is played, because holy shit, every single game would take forever to do, and it would be really boring. People just going, and I set a land.
I'm sorry. Damage still went on the stack at this point of the game, so we have to resolve this in layers. It's a state-based action. It happens. Your creature goes to the graveyard. It still touches it, even though it's exile. It's like, oh, I can't deal with this.
And hey, fun characters, some some nice interactions between them. So it was a lot of fun to read.
Yeah. I think I will concur with you and say Destroy All Humanity. They Can't Be Regenerated. I think this is one that I really, really want to see get a like official translation and release. Although I think that is very unlikely it'll ever happen because it has to this thing get permission from Hasbro to happen, as it uses a bunch of card art and things like that, which might just be too difficult for it to happen. Maybe not though. But I definitely did enjoy this series, and we had Austin on, which I think is always going to be something I'll appreciate because Austin is a very good Chad, and he deserves the best.
I mean, he did tell us, because I think that one of my objections was like, yeah, I mean, like, what was with this with, you know, people who play Magic the Gathering and then they end up with like 3 different girlfriends? Like, well, I did.
Oh yeah, you never.
Fuck you.
Austin always has these wild stories. We'll just be like, I don't know, man. Like, what was something interesting that you did in the library? Like, well, I finger banged 6 chicks in the bathroom once before. You're just like, what the fuck? I'm like, yeah, I'm fucking awesome, dude. I don't know what to tell you. And then I went home and played Fire Emblem. I rule.
I think that, so I don't like Kanye West, but I do remember hearing a story about him where he, and again, bad people involved in the story. He mentioned it was like he was on the Chappelle show and he gets a phone call from somebody and he's like, yeah, I'm just on the Chappelle show, you know, watching some clips. because my life is dope and I do dope things.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's like, all right, that's okay.
You did it, I suppose.
Again, both garbage people. Number 2. Okay, my number 2 favorite series this year. We have already talked about kind of having mixed but mostly positive thoughts on it. But honestly, the stuff that Kaguya does well, it does incredibly well. And I still do want to check out more of it. I can't believe that almost an entire year's gone by, and I was like, yeah, I'll read more of it. I haven't still. I've had other things to do.
It's tough. There's a lot of things going on.
Yeah. But it is one of those things that I'm excited to actually read more, despite the fact that I haven't done so yet. And I did really enjoy reading it. So,
my number 2 is Boys Run the Riot. I was very, very thankful to read like just a genuinely pleasant and exceptionally well done series about trans characters that, again, like, it's dramatic, but the premise doesn't seem to be just like, let's make them miserable, which I really, kind of appreciate and valued. Boys Run the Riot was just very fun to read. Maybe fun's not the best word. Enjoyable to read. I was gonna say there was a lot of like pies being thrown in it, but it was definitely a story that gripped me. And there's a couple moments where I really sat there and said like, oh yeah, like kind of vibing with those moments. We also got a lot of comments on that episode and a lot of people's thoughts. I actually had a friend of mine from quite a long time ago. I think I mentioned it. I know I mentioned him a lot on the show. Frank, the person who got me into manga, actually reached out to me and was like, hey, I started listening to your podcast again. Boys Run the Riot sounds really, really interesting. It was like, oh, cool. Like, I'm glad that's the episode Frank decided to check out and didn't like go back and was like, checked out your episode your episode on Love Stage. You really watch a lot of like boys love incest series? Like, no, Carino's got us up to it. It was Carino's fault.
Aki Sora, so do you do like a lot of just like pretty much straight up hentai between brother and sister series?
It was one time. We didn't know it when we took it as a recommendation. There are rules in place now.
To protect the innocent, i.e. us. I am going to keep the momentum going by saying that my number 1 series this year was Boys Run the Riot. There were some moments in this that were just such small moments that I found myself getting physically worked up about as I read the series. I would like gasp while I was reading parts of it. I would stop and hold my mouth and stuff over stuff like a character takes another character's hand. And because of like the subtext of that, you realize different things that are going on. There is a moment where, a character gets outed and I was just like, no! I was yelling in frustration. It tells a story that we really need more of in manga, and it does it incredibly well. It is incredibly engrossing and gripping. And I can't wait for more volumes to come out so I can read more of it.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Now, I'm gonna stop you before you get into what your number 1 is. I have a feeling on it. I'm not gonna make any predictions, but I do want to say I'm gonna repeat my point that we had a lot of great stuff this year, and I kind of stuck myself with a rule for this, which was I tried to avoid naming stuff on either of my lists that I had prior reading experience with, because that's just kind of one of my things. So that's why Kenichi wasn't on my worst list. I would have probably had much more negative feelings on it than any of the 3 that were. And that's also why Golden Kamuy isn't on my top 3. My other rule is that if it becomes part of the recap, I also don't like putting it down in my recommended series things. Anyway.
So my number 1 is not Undead Unluck, if that's where you were.
Oh, okay. For. I was wrong.
No, my number 1, no, to another one of your rules is History's Strongest Disciple. No, my number 1, you mentioned it earlier, it's Alice in Borderland. The episode,
really?
Yeah. If I talk about the series that I enjoyed the most this year, It's 100% Alice in Borderland. It is a
You
series.
had real mixed thoughts. Not really even mixed thoughts. You like went on a roller coaster.
It was real. It was so up and down when I think about this series. But this was a series I read all of. I read whatever the side stuff that they did. The only part I had to skip was a portion in the middle of the King of Spades game, just so I could make sure I actually finished it in time. But you mentioned it before. The episode we recorded about it is easily the best episode I think we recorded all year. I think the discussion we had about this series was great. It got us really talking about some of the different intricacies of this series. It was also just a nice, refreshing thing to be like, hey, we can go on for more than an hour and not be like, holy shit, now we have to cram 17 series into an hour and a half or whatever. But more than anything, this series is going to stick with me for the last chapter, because I will oftentimes stop and think about the last chapter and how the last chapter was just a question being posed to a great number of people of, why do you think you're alive? And I like moments like that can like sit in your mind and be something I can call upon so easily, or so precious to me, because it's very easy for things to just leave my head, that I was like, I can't really not acknowledge it. I was like, this was great. I didn't think I would enjoy Alice in Borderland as much as I did, but after we record that episode, I was like, this is a really, really good series, and I'm really, really glad we read it.
I've got a lot more honorable mentions than dishonorable mentions. Like Alice in Borderland was overall a very enjoyable series with like a lot of characters that I did end up getting, feeling some sense of connection to. Golem Kamuy was already good. I knew that already. And The Bones of an Invisible Person, like it's not like an enjoyable series, but it was definitely a really engrossing story that look back on it was like, oh man, that was, I'm glad that I read that.
Yeah.
So and of course, Undead Unluck. Yeah.
Undead Unluck, phenomenal series. 4 Nights was great. Kaguya-sama, as I said, like the parts of it that are great, I really, really enjoy. Way of the House Husband, I still read. Like I'm still collecting and following the volumes, which I think is the better way to enjoy it. Hell's Paradise also could have been on there. I think that at the parts that I was getting up to, I was really, really vibing with it. So I think this was a really good year.
I think we're a little bit more positive on some of the stuff this year than I was. And I still think that we had a lot more good series than bad. So yeah. To back up your point on the ending of Alice in Borderland, out of the stuff that we have read this year in terms of like, stuff that reached its conclusion and we were able to see how it ended and stuff, the best ending definitely was Love Stage, where they have the sex scene where they're reversed in terms of who's on top and bottom. But Alice in Borderland also pretty good.
Yeah, that was a pretty good one. They didn't have to have a warning at the start of the Alice in Borderland chapter, though, in case you don't like your bottoms topping people.
You read it and it's like, this is about bottoms topping people?
I want to read the collective thoughts of our audience then for their favorite series of the year and worst series.
Yes.
So Ninja X3I, who puts in a tremendous amount of work for this podcast, helping to like categorize what the audience thinks and gets votes out there, put this all together. And I want to note that the audience said their worst 3 from number 3 to worst is History's Strongest Disciple Kenichi, Dear Sa-chan, and Love Stage. And the best was Bones of an Invisible Person, Kaguya-sama, Love is War, and then Undead Unluck.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of interesting stuff in there.
Yeah. All right. Well, so we've been through the best. We've been through the worst. What's next?
Now we talk about the series that have been in the recap. And we specifically try to talk about the series where they were at the start of the year, and to see if Nick can remember where they were at the start of 2020. And Nick, I don't want to add any pressure to you, but I do feel like in the spirit of the holidays, we should make things a little bit more exciting. If you can get all of them, I will bequeath the Veto in the Bank briefcase to you. On no other terms. You just have to get all of them right.
Does anything happen if I don't?
No, there's no downside.
Okay.
This is just something to make it more fun, to make every one of them more exciting. Okay.
Okay.
Now I'll go over real quick a couple series that were in the recap, but then have left. So you don't have to consider these. Witch Watch came in. If you want to hear us talk about any of these, well, I should say us. If you want to hear me talk about any of these series, monthly other recap, I talk about all of them. Witch Watch was this year. Blue Box this year.
Yes.
Candy Flurry has come and gone as well.
Blue Box is still one that I think. I mean, I would like to, but I don't know how interesting it would be to talk about week to week. So.
It might work. A lot of chapters are just like teenagers sad because they can't figure out romance. But that might be nice to have to break up the like 7 series we have where a bunch of teenagers try to cut each other's heads off.
Oh, I'm sorry. I mixed up somehow what you were saying, and I thought for a second you were saying that for a few chapters there were teenagers trying to cut each other's heads off in Blue Box.
Oh, there was a zombie apocalypse. There was a small like mini arc about that. Shinatsu is dead. She's dead. So there's a new girl in the Blue Box.
Wasn't there already another girl?
Yeah, that's who it is. It's Chano now.
Oh.
It's all about her. But Shinatsu is dead.
Turns out that Shinatsu happened to survive.
Her spirit still haunts the school. Also, Blue Box is the name of the experiment program that created the zombies.
Oh, it all makes sense now.
Yeah. You thought it was just about the big blue gymnasium. Nope. It's an evil government program that creates zombies.
That was about what it was supposed to be.
Yeah. Narrow Way of the Martial Artist came and went this year. PPPPPP, which has become, I don't want to say a good series, Nick, but I'm going to say it's a good series now.
I can't believe that it actually made it into the next year. Like
barely. Who knows if it's going to last much longer than that, but PPPPPP is better than it was when we left the recap, and also worse, which I love. It's an interesting series. Ayashimon came and went, and then Protect Me Shugamaru was also gone. So there you go.
Among the series that we said no to, a fair number of, okay, we have to make the right choice here. 1 or 2, though, where it's like, okay, this might very well just end up in the recap again in the future anyway.
Yeah, Witch Watch, I think, has become a pretty enjoyable series. There's still a couple chapters where you're like, all right, there's a joke to this chapter that's not funny at all, and I'm just going to have to endure that. But, that comes and goes with the territory when you get like a comedy chapter.
I would sooner take Ayashimon instead of Witch Watch.
Well, if you don't win this veto, guess what's happening? Now, all right. There was also a bunch of side like chapters and things like that that Ninja included in here. I guess the only thing I want to mention is Look Back, the one shot by Fujimoto that was this year.
Legitimately my favorite thing that I read this year.
Yeah, very, very good.
It's incredibly good. So.
All right. Now, Nick, technically it's not in the recap anymore. So maybe you could drop this one. Well, where do you think Ayakashi Triangle was at the start of 2020?
Well, I don't think we were actually covering it at the start of the year, were we?
We were. We dropped it from the recap in May. So I think we were still covering it at the start of the year.
Well, it would have been... Okay, so the series started last July, was it? Something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, I know that we were covering it when there was like the actual like villain who showed up, who could summon the mouths.
Sosuke.
Hang on. You know what? I'm not going to pull up a summary or anything, but I'm going to just look at what the chapter count is for these right now. So Ayakashi Triangle's on. So 21. Okay. Oh boy.
I like that. Like, I want to animate the numbers going on in your head, like the GIF.
That's basically what I'm doing, because I'm like trying to figure out like what would have been appropriate to happen at this chapter.
What I find amusing though is Ayakashi Triangle has essentially been a series that has had one major plot line and then a bunch of fan service joke chapters, and you're like, did it happen?
Some of these are going to be much harder than others.
You're like, did it happen during the one serious plot line, or was it in the countless fan service joke chapters?
Was it during the sleepover that they had, where they went over and then they performed the exorcism on Lou while she was asleep?
No. I will say there was a particular character in this chapter.
Was it the artist guy?
No, it was Rio, the scientist girl who revealed she has like a smell fetish.
Right. So was this like her introduction?
No, or... she had been introduced before, because they introduced her like in her lab or some shit.
Second appearance. Yeah. Great. I definitely remember that.
Well, if you recall, she uses incense to try to reverse the gender swap jutsu, but it ends up just making Matsuri's breasts smaller, but then bigger afterwards. Anyways, we dropped it for the recap in May and replaced it with Undead Unluck.
Yeah, there's no regrets.
But that one really wasn't part of the recap. So you're still in this, Nick. You still have a chance at that veto.
Oh, great.
You just have to remember, where was Black Clover at the start of 2021?
Okay, well, it would have been during this arc.
Yes. The Spade Kingdom invasion. I will say that.
Black Clover's got a weird pace, especially because due to illness and everything.
You had to take Tabata's health, and several chapters have been missed this year as a result.
Some of them have been missed, and some of them have been very short. Mm-hmm. And also, I want to say before, because I remember that there being a thing that we established, like when we did like the first chapters at the beginning of this year, that there was something really big that happened in one of the series. And you specifically told me, oh, you better remember this.
Yeah.
And I can't even remember what series that was.
It's going to go well for you.
I think that... Oh, it's the numbers calculating again. So I think that by this point there would have already had the part where Yami was kidnapped. So I'm going to say that this would have been around the time that Nature Boy Ric Flair was introduced.
I'm going to give you a little help here. It was during a fight.
It was actually a fight.
There was a fight going on.
So I don't think that... Have there even been any fights this year at all that haven't involved the Dark Triad or the New Devil thing in the more recent chapters? I don't...
Well, that's like 6 different fights when you consider it.
Yeah.
7, I guess, technically, with Morris.
So Magna's big brawl thing with Dante happened this year. So it has to be before that, and he was the first one that was actually defeated. We did get introduction to the fights prior to that. All right. I'm going to say that this was before the Devil training with Nature Boy Ric Flair, and this might be going back too far, but I'm going to say it was when Yami cut the dude in half.
No, I don't even know what you're talking about. With Dante?
Yeah.
No. This was after that. At the start of the year, it was when Vanica was fighting Charlotte and Rill. And this was back before like the Dark Triad had started doing their super forms, so the various different members of like the captains got to show off powers for a little bit. Don't you remember Jack the Ripper's important backstory?
Oh my God, you're right. That did happen.
Because Charlotte got to show off that she had rose, like special rose magic and stuff like that.
Look, I completely forgot that they had the unimportant characters try and fight the Dark Triad before the actual important characters showed up. Okay, I forgot that was the thing that happened.
Well, I think that's gonna unfortunately seal off your chance of winning the Vito in the bank. But maybe if you get the rest of them right, we'll see. We'll see if fate smiles kindly upon you. Nick, where do you think Boruto Naruto Next Generations was at the start of this year?
Okay, so Kishimoto had already been in charge of the series by this point.
No, he was not.
Wasn't?
No, he started this year. I don't believe he was at this part.
When did Samurai 8 end?
Last year, but it wasn't like he jumped right from Samurai 8 and took over Boruto.
Okay, so the transition happened, and we were like, immediately.
Some people are saying he started last year. I will say this. The situation with Jigen had happened, and I thought he didn't take over until after that ended.
Right. God. Oh, it's such a weird blur right now. Okay. So it was
maybe he did take over in the middle of it.
Unbelievably, Code hadn't been introduced at the start of the year yet. Like, it feels like forever ago that Code was introduced, but I don't think it was this yet. Right, because Code basically got introduced almost as soon as Kishimoto took over. And there was the conversation with Kawaki, which led, and then there was a second conversation with Kawaki. The computer is dead. Now there's just like now there's just like a toy horse. Front. Oh, I'm going to say it's when Kawaki broke the vase.
No. That was like 2 years ago, wasn't it?
Was it?
I know it's been such a compelling. I will say, I'll give you a hint. Something that was happening, what it was basically happening at the time, is very similar to where we're at now in Boruto.
In terms of people trying to kidnap.
All I'm saying is what was happening at the start of.
Oh, right.
This has been a bookended year of Boruto.
So, okay, now I remember what the situation with Jigen was. So there was the fight, and Boruto was involved in it, but mostly there was Sasuke and Naruto, and Kyuubi sacrificed himself because I think it was it literally the chapter that Kurama sacrificed himself?
It was, I think, a little bit after it. This is, to just say it at this point, it was Kawaki and Sasuke having to fight a Momoshiki-possessed Boruto, which is what's happening essentially in the manga right now, except replace Sasuke with Naruto. This is, if you don't remember...
my brain has protected itself from how few ideas Kishimoto seems to have right now.
I will say this. It isn't this chapter. I think it's the next chapter, or maybe it was right before it, where Boruto skateboards and impales Sasuke's eye. That one. But look, I'm going to say this. If you can get this next one, I think you're right back in this game, Nick. Nick, where was Doron Dororon at the start of this year?
Didn't exist.
All right, well, can you tell me what its first chapter was about?
It was about Kusanagi meeting Dora and them deciding to work together.
You did it. All right, Nick's back in this game. Your little walking horse just got updated. It's got like jet boosters. I was like, now let's see if we can put that to use. Nick, where was Dr. Stone at the start of this year?
So they must have been in America by this time. God, they may have. No, they left America already. So I believe they already encountered Dr. Chelsea, maybe. Okay, so let's see. There was the stuff with there's the stuff with Suika. Before that, they were preparing to be. Was this the chapter where it looked like everyone died?
No. You're thinking a little bit too far down the line, I think.
I need to go back further, or I need to go further.
I think you need to go further back than that part.
Okay, so Stanley's chasing them. There's the radar. They make a ship that can reflect radio waves. Zeno gives the signal to Stanley. I really do strongly feel like they'd actually at least left America.
Yes, they had left America to go to South America.
Okay.
There was a particular thing. There's a 2-page spread, I guess I should say, that this chapter revolves around.
Is it the reveal of all the fucking petrification devices?
Yeah, there you go.
That was one of the ideas that I had prior to that. So.
All right, there you go. The mountain of petrification devices. Nick's on the board. Ding.
That might have been the thing I was supposed to remember too. So.
Might have. All right, Nick. Do you remember where Eden Zero was at the start of 2021?
Honestly, I feel a little bit better about this one than I could. So to work backwards from here, they were on Sandra the Sand Planet. Mm-hmm. And let's see, they got Laguna's assistance. Then they were. Was there anything? There was the ocean planet.
Yeah, Red Cave.
Which had the fire cave in the middle of it. Mm-hmm. I feel like if I go back to Draken Joe, that's going back too far. But it could be like the very, very end of that. There was stuff with Ziggy.
There's always stuff with Ziggy.
There was the guy who was training them to use their ether gear, even if they were bound. But that was, I think, more towards the middle of the year. So as you can see, I can actually retroactively construct the timeline. So I'm actually kind of okay. No, Draken Joe's going back way too far because Foresta was in between that. So the Eggbot was this year, with the Eggbot exploding. There was oh god, I'm pretty confident. No, I'm not confident because arc lengths in Eden Zero were very weirdly short, and then they got way longer very recently. So they might not have even been on Foresta. Maybe the ocean planet was even before Foresta. All right, I'm going to say that it was during Foresta.
Okay. I'll tell you you're correct.
And it was... I can't remember anything specific that happened on Foresta except for this. So I'll just go with this because I can't be more specific on anything else. It's the one where Rebecca experiments with her cat leaper powers.
I think you're actually pretty close. I think this might have been technically right before that. Like there was a larger chapter that I think dealt with it. But it's right around that point. And I think it's around the same time they meet the character Xenolith, who's the old robot master that you were referring to earlier, the one who trains Shiki and the rest of the crew. So I think I'll give that to you. I think you're pretty close on that one.
I got it down to the forest of the forest planet. So, yeah.
Well, when you mentioned Red Cave, I was like, yeah, that's there. That was before it, though. And then it's like, fuck, what happened on Foresta? They fought a bunch of people who didn't matter. And then it ended. Yeah, and then Eggbot died. This is also a chapter where I think we're like sort of not reintroduced. I think he may have came up before, but it was like the evil doctor that was in space was making Queen go crazy and everything like that.
Foresta was also the planet where they were
they were on the satellite at the time. So yeah.
Well, and the Foresta was also the planet where they were being kept as human pets.
Yeah.
And the robots were just kind of like, we don't understand how to be in power. Yeah. So
ITLC, we won't make you guess. Just wanted to reminisce about a fucking A+ series.
I do wish we had more of it. Like, it feels like every year we have a series end that it's like, oh, it wasn't good, but I really want more of it. Last year it was Samurai 8. This year it was ITLC. So
yeah. Good series. But ironically, Kaiju number 8, Nick, can you recall where Kaiju number 8 was?
No.
That's a good answer.
Right.
Correct.
You don't recall where it was. So this is also tricky because of its weird schedule that it's on. So we've been introduced to. Okay. This might be around the time that Kaiju number 9 like actually first shows up. When I think about it, when I think about when it takes place, because
maybe.
Okay, there with the. All right, so. So Kafka passes his fucking test.
You're gonna work it too hard though, and the jets are gonna take it off the ground and hit it into a wall, and then there's just one spinning around in a circle. You're like, I don't know what had happened. I don't know what series are we talking about.
Is this the bit? Yeah, this might be it. Where Lieutenant Hoshina is fighting the brawler kaiju thing.
Well, that would have been before or after Kaiju number 9. If that's what you're thinking.
I don't remember what happens when Kaiju number 9 first shows up, come to think of it.
Well, remember we called him Toilet Kaiju.
Right. Because he was hiding in the toilet. He takes over the guy. Okay, so that fight did take place this year.
I will say there is a very specific event that occurs at the end of the first chapter that was released this year. That if you can guess that, then I will say you absolutely get it.
Very specific event doesn't make me feel good. So
I'm trying not to give it away. There's particular words that if I said, I'd be like, well, he's going to get it immediately. A notable thing happens. A notable status quo shift of some kind.
Well, someone has to have found out that Kafka Trent is Kaiju number 8. God, I'm trying to remember how much has happened this year. Is it just Kikoru who finds out in that chapter?
No. Kikoru found out at the end of the exam. Because she had to see him transform, right?
I don't even remember how long ago that was. Is the
thing.
That
was last year.
I have a very difficult time, especially because, there's also, when they just have the illustration chapters. So, my ability to kind of pace it stumbles constantly. That was, I knew was going to be the challenge for this one. So. God. I mean, I guess it could just be everyone finds out about it, but it seems like that would be a really long time ago.
It was actually later.
Well, then what the fuck happens?
It was when Kafka is promoted to a general officer after their mission.
Okay.
He gets promoted finally, and they have a big party to celebrate their first mission being a success.
God, that's it feels like we've been stuck in the current stretch of Kaiju number 8 forever.
Yeah.
So I completely forgot that was like a thing he was trying to do.
Yeah, it was something he accomplished and then increased dramatically. Moving along.
Just could not do that one.
Moving along alphabetically, Nick. Mashle, Magic and Muscles. Where was Mashle at the start of this year? This one fucked with my head. I would not have gotten this one.
Because of the weird pace Mashle sets for itself.
A lot happened this year.
So
back on it.
So Mashle is this would have been about half of its lifetime ago now, because Mashle's on like chapter 90 now. So I'm trying to think of how much of the selection exam that we've seen, because I think that this chapter probably wasn't actually too far off from like the beginnings of the selection exam stuff. Trying to think of how long that lasted, though. It's the weird baby thing. Okay. There's a flashback with Wahlberg. Innocent Zero with his weird face showed up. And before that, there was the stuff with Margaret. And Margaret's duel with Lance. That might be it. There's the puppet guy, but that's last year. All right, I'm going to say that it was like during the, I guess you could say, like precursor to the Not Try Wizard tournament. And I think it was like basically like our big introduction to Margaret, where she duels Lance.
Yeah, I'm gonna have you exactly. You got the person wrong. She duels Rain.
Oh, okay.
And it's right before Rain, I think, reveals his Bankai, essentially.
Right.
But yeah, pretty much exactly right on the dot. It was when that happened. I forgot that was like the start of this year. I thought like Margaret had been introduced like late last year, or like midway last year, or something like that. I was like, holy shit! The rest of the cast just played a board game.
Yeah, I feel good about that one. Then.
There you go.
But, like I actually was like, all right, no, that's actually what happens.
Yeah, no, you're right on it, that one. My Hero, Nick.
This is also kind of a difficult one because
if they're all difficult, are none of them difficult?
Yeah.
Okay.
But the reason why I'm because like I had actually been thinking specifically about this one ahead of time. I didn't do any research on it, but I was thinking about it. I was like, I'm pretty sure it's during the big battle, but it's like, yeah, but when? So, I mean, I'm sure it must have to do with the stuff involving Shigaraki and everything. And I'm trying to remember if Crust dying was this year or not. Because that was such a big thing that we made memorable because we harped on it so much. So, but I can't remember if that happened.
There is a very specific thing that happens in this chapter. And I don't want to say too much, but I will say if you think back to the start of the year, you might be able to remember why, or that this happened specifically at this point.
You just said a whole bunch of nothing. I want you to understand that.
An event happened. Nick, come on. An event happened.
Come on. A very specific thing happened.
A thing happened. Okay, I'll say this. I'll just help you. It's in the spirit of the giving time. It definitely, it was maybe not fortuitous, I guess, considering, but this chapter came out very close to when we did the Vito and the Bank match.
Oh, right. So there were characters involved. Oh, was this during the reveal of all the dead people?
Yeah, this is when they revealed all the characters who had died.
And then like, you have to remember this because look.
The fucking native died or something.
I think it was actually native.
All right. 9 Balls Dragons Ball Parade Ball. That also started this year and unfortunately ended this year.
We had a fun time with it, but I think that we also kind of understood like this isn't gonna last before too long had gone into it. So
Nick, where was One Piece at the start of this year?
So this is both very easy. I can say with confidence, it was during Onigashima.
Yes,
but
which of the 200 some chapters of Onigashima was it?
So, God, it's so weird because like we've jumped around so much. Like one of my instincts, honestly, is just to say like it was one of the times that Orochi seemingly got killed because then that'll triple my chances.
I was gonna say you have like 4 more chapters you could potentially guess with that one. You're like, did either Orochi or Kanjuro come back from the dead in this chapter? Like shit, that's like half of One Piece.
But honestly, like, I just know that, like, a bunch of the fights ended this year because we're getting, everything out of the way to set the stage for Luffy's, the climax of Luffy versus Kaido. And I know that, like, we saw, occasional flashbacks involving stuff that had to do with Momonosuke or with Yamato. Yamato was introduced in, like, July of last year. And then they're just kind of running around for a bit for like a month after that. So 4 months after that is when like some stuff is starting to settle down. I don't think there were any protracted flashbacks in that time. Like there was the bit where we saw like Yamato's childhood and we had like Zoro's flashback to his childhood and stuff. But I don't think there's been any like flashback multi-chapter thing since Yoden stuff. So I am going to say, and I don't think this is going back far enough, but is the big memorable thing that I can latch onto. I'm going to say it is when the Triceracopter ability got used.
No, this was the big one, Nick. This is chapter 1000.
It was? God damn it!
Chapter 1000 of One Piece.
It was the flashback, kind of.
It was not a flashback. It was the supernovas against Kaido and Big Mom. The big fight.
Chapter 1000 was January, of course.
I was gonna give you so many leeways with it, but I was like, "Oh, Nick's gonna definitely get One Piece. There's no way he's not gonna get One Piece."
I just completely forgot that was when it was. That of all the ones, I didn't look at what chapter number we were on. I would have known.
Oh no! Unfortunately, I wish I could give that one to you, but the Triceracopter thing was a while away.
Oh man, that was me like ascending the ladder, and then you just do your finisher to me off of it.
I just rock bottom you off the top, and it's like, all right, I guess I'll climb it now.
It's like, no, he took a finisher through 3 more ladders over there. He's done.
Yeah, he's out for the match.
Actually, one thing I was going to say was, I don't know if we've done more wrestling tangents this year or if WWE has let go of more wrestlers than that. So
you say that this year. They just another release just happened today. So, although this one, I believe she quit as opposed to being released.
But I was thinking like, I wonder how many I'd have to, because there were like 80 or something like that this year alone.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Wow. All right. Well,
that's why we play this game though, for moments like that.
Full disclosure, the last couple of years that I've done this, I have at least like when I've looked back through previous episodes, I've seen like some episode titles and stuff. So sometimes that has given me a little bit of a clue. This time, I just looked at the stuff that the recommended series we took. No context for anything.
I thought it was that like sometimes our chapter title or episode names become so obtuse you can't even decipher what they're about.
No.
Like, what the fuck's Ado Minado? I don't know what this is.
So, but for anyone saying like, "Oh wow, like Nick has generally done better in previous years," that's why I am extra blind this year.
True. Spy Family, Nick. Where were you in Spy Family?
Okay. I'm going to do what I should have done for the previous one. I'm going to look at what the chapter number was. So Spy Family, I know that one of the things that happened this year is that we were finally introduced to Lloyd's target. And it's, God, I'm trying to think of how long this yacht mission thing has been going on, because it's been at least a few months. Okay. So chapter 39. Jeez. God, that's, when I think about it, that's, God. It's like a third of the series ago. So Bond was already part of the family, definitely, because he was introduced last year. Oh, I can't remember if the big, long tennis arc thing was this year or last year. Oh. It might be at the end of that. Okay, what is there anything that could have happened in between then? I think that she was brought up. No. I think that happened last year.
It's starting to reel back up.
Yep, you broke it, so the springs are sticking out now. So
sometimes it slows down. Sometimes it gets a lot faster unnecessarily.
I
will say this. A new character is sort of well, hold on.
New character.
Yeah, I'll say a new character is involved in this.
New character. I'm just gonna say it was during the tennis mission story arc thing. That's I'm not even confident in that, but that gives me the widest net to throw. So
yeah, that was I believe before this. The character I was referring to technically is Desmond, Damien's father, but technically the first chapter.
I kicked off by saying he's introduced this year, and I didn't realize it was that long ago.
Technically, I guess the character introduced this chapter though is Mr. Green, the custodian, who has to take all the kids on a trip or whatever.
Oh, okay. I knew that happened this year, but I didn't realize it was that long ago.
Yeah, we had quite a lot.
That was a nice little chapter that had a nice kind of humanizing experience for those three boys. So
yeah, Elusive Samurai started this year. Started January too. So good one. Hunter's Guild started this year. Ended this year as well. Undead Unluck we added into the recap. I'm not going to make you because we didn't start covering it until like halfway through the year almost.
Was it the one where they try to get a chapter into Shonen Jump?
No. But that's a good one. And then finally, World Trigger, Nick. Where was World Trigger at the start of this year?
I'm pretty damn sure it was during the selection for the teammates.
Yeah, it was during the draft. You got it.
I'm pretty like that one. I was the most confident in going in.
Nick, I'm about 100% positive at this point because I'm reaching the end of this document. We've gotten all of them at this point. Oh wait, hold on. There appears to be one more. Magu-chan, Nick. Ninja didn't forget it this year. Where was Magu-chan at the start of this year?
Well, Magu-chan does holidays for holidays. So I'm pretty sure it was their New Year's chapter. but I honestly could not tell you any details about what happens in it. I know that there was a Christmas
You're really
thing.
close. You're really close.
I know there's a Christmas thing.
Nick, if you get this right, I will give you the veto in the bank.
Why are you doing this to me?
It's got to keep it interesting.
Why are you doing this to me?
You just have to get it, Nick.
I mean, I told you it's like they do stuff at the new year. So if it was the first chapter of the year, then wouldn't it be like if they did do a New Year's thing at all? I know the only other thing would be if it were the resolution to Christmas stuff, but I think that they actually resolved all that stuff by Christmas. Like it was the date. So then they would have gone, okay, so if they resolve all the Christmas plot from last year, then that means that Ruru's mom is in town still. And so the next chapter, they would have actually gone out and done stuff with her. So I believe that the New Year stuff was they went to like a shrine to do like their beginning of year prayer thing. And so Magu had like a thing where he turned himself into all the different methods that you like, all the different like items, and there was like a scavenger hunt to find Magu, I think.
You're very close. You're very close. It is sort of the resolution of the Christmas stuff, where Ruru's mom finally meets Magu-chan is the chapter, and there's a little bit of conflict because Ruru reveres her mom more than Magu, so he gets a little jealous and everything like that.
So the New Year's chapter was in the middle of January?
Yes.
Bullshit. I feel gypped.
Well, it looks like the veto in the bank stays with me for a little bit longer, unfortunately.
I call hacks. I knew that much about the New Year's chapter, and I foolishly assumed that it happened on New Year's.
I know. And look, some could say if I was generous, I would have given it to you because you're only like a week off, but you did forget that the One Piece started with chapter 1000 this year. So I feel like I have to give it to you.
I feel like if you gave it to me, you'd just be like, really?
All right. Well, that's all that. So finally, let's wrap up the year by talking about the best, the superlatives. You did okay. I'm not gonna hype you up. You did.
I didn't go 0 for 12 or whatever.
Yeah, you got Mashle like right on the dot. So that's very impressive. Good for you on that. Let's talk about the best this year, Nick. And let's just start right at the top. Let's talk about the best hero. A lot of nominations were had. Some said Luffy from One Piece. Some say Azukido from Nine Dragons Ball Parade. Tokiyuki, Mash, Deku, Suika, Yor, and Fuko are the nominations this year.
This was actually kind of an easy choice for me. I feel as though, yeah, like it was nice to see, Yor actually do stuff this year. I thought the Tokiyuki was a great new character. But it's Fuko.
Yeah, it's 100% it's Fuko. Fuko had such a great year.
Yeah,
that's great. Fuko, great character. Really, really enjoyed her. So we're happy for her. Best new character, we have Rui, aka Ruru's mom. We have Tsubaki from Nine Dragons Ball Parade. Lady Nagant from My Hero. I'm going to tell you right now, she's not winning my vote. Tokiyuki, Debonair from
Diamond. I get the impression, I think I know why a couple of characters got nominated, but I'm not going to say why. Yeah. I'm not going to say.
The Smiling Face Guard from Smiling Face Guard from Elusive Samurai, Sanamune from Elusive Samurai, and then Spring from Undead Unluck.
I have really enjoyed Spring's arc, but I get the feeling he's gonna die after at the end of this, considering they keep on saying he's gonna die at the end of this. I think the Tokiyuki is a nice new character. I don't know if like I feel like I would have nominated some other characters than what is available here. But out of the choices that you've given me, I am going to go with Tokiyuki. So
Okay. By the way, I missed this part. The audience picked MASH as their best hero of the year. So just throwing that out there. For best new character, I don't love anyone. I feel like I can't obviously give it to Tsubaki or Debonair. Not that I was going to, because those series ended this year. Like, it's hard to be best new character in a series that had 20 chapters, you know? I don't think Ruru's mom is that memorable of a character. I don't care about Tokiyuki that much. I guess I'm going to give it to Spring. Hold on. I just want to scroll through the rest of this. Yeah, no, none of the other characters really call out to me. I'm going to say Spring from Undead Unluck is a new character this year. He was pretty cool. I guess he's still around, but the audience agreed with that, by the way. Spring is their character of the year.
cool.
All right, Nick. Best new technique or power. We have Magna's secret flame magic of the Soul Chain.
Soul Chain Deathmatch.
Yeah. Tokiyuki's Demon Heart Buddha Blade. Sasaki's Heliceratops. So it was this year, Nick. You did have that.
It was.
Robin's Demono Flare.
Demonio Fleur.
Queen's Brachiosnakis. Andy's Death Shadow, which I believe is the one where he basically rips his skin off. Uno Yukayasu being a lord of... the Lord of Carnage from 30 Years of Virginity guy.
Right.
I was like, who the fuck is this until I read it. And then King's Imperial Deep Pride Steak. Fuck. I just got that stupid pun.
What?
Deep Pride Steak. Deep fried steak.
Oh, okay.
It's very dumb. I hate it.
It's not great. So, look, I like a lot of these. I like the understated but also very straightforward nature of the Buddha blade, where he runs away while cutting and it actually improves his cut. All of the dinosaur things from One Piece have been funny. I think that it reached its pinnacle with Brachiosnakis and just how absurd that got, with him shooting himself repeatedly and everything. Very, very, very fun. Mm-hmm. It's Magna's Secret Flame Magic Soul Chain Deathmatch, though. The technique that single-handedly, just like, I don't care that I had no reason to care about Magna up to this point. He just latches himself onto Dante and punches one of the top 3 bad guys to death. I don't care.
That is pretty much a pretty supreme character moment. It's got to be Magna's Secret Flame. The audience, by the way, also agreed. They picked the Magna's Secret Flame Magic Soul Chain Deathmatch.
Mm-hmm.
Best speech now, Nick. We have the "Now I'm a million times stronger than you" from Mash to Carpaccio. We have "But I want to save that little boy" to Deku, referring to the previous older wielders of One for All in regards to Shigaraki. We have Yorishige explaining to Tokiyuki the relationship between human understanding and divine power. We have Bakugo's apology to Deku. We have Chikara's speech to Creed about him underestimating them. Stain's speech to Toshinori. Yor's eternal monologue of thinking why she became an assassin. And Fuko's speech to Billy.
This is actually pretty easy for me in terms of like stuff that I remember having an impact on me at the time. And when I look back on most, it is the speech from Elusive Samurai, because it just, I don't know. I think that's the chapter. I want to say, let me double check, but I want to say that's the chapter where I was like, the series is like special. And then since then, it hasn't been quite as good as it was in that single chapter. So,
I'm gonna give a lot of stuff, I feel like, at the end of this to Undead Unluck, so I'm gonna avoid it here. Although I think all those speeches are really, really good. I maybe just recency bias. I think I'm gonna give it to Yor's monologue of why she became the assassin, because it was so nice to actually get a moment from Yor.
Oh, okay.
That we.
No, I'm thinking of a different chapter. This is all right. So this is the bit where like she's Tokiyuki had already been to see Shizuku, and then after that is when Yorishige explains the relation of between stuff to him. So
Yeah. I think I'm gonna go with that. It's that or the MASH one. The MASH one was really cool. Yeah, never mind. No, it's the MASH one. I'm sorry. I don't even know why I thought about it. I had to stop and recall. It was like, this is that chapter that basically almost made me cry, where it was just like MASH defending his friend so staunchly. Yeah, it's that MASH one. Sorry. I'm sorry. Your moment was cool, but that MASH moment was better.
okay.
The audience said Bakugo's apology to Deku was their favorite. So there you go. Now I have to get back to the other thing. There we go. Biggest what the fuck moment this year.
Yeah.
This is like my favorite of the whole year. I love this one so much. Ukon's very sad at the death of the consequences that is followed by Saquon's anger toward. Basically, Saquon's brother dies, and then at the end of the chapter, he's like, "You big meanie! Oh, you killed my brother!" Seikon, fuck, TLC was so great. Seikon decides the best way to deal with Aoi being given a lethal dose of poison is to take half of it himself instead of doing literally anything else.
How are there only 2 ITLC moments in this?
I feel like the entire end of the stupid Mar like thieving thing should have been on here.
We put a single magnet and just this one tile.
And it'll stop her, not shatter her fucking ankles when she tries to move.
Yeah.
Sorry. Matsuri and Suzu going 69 while Matsuri tries to extract Haku from Suzu's belly button. Oh, you know what? I don't even remember that.
That's honestly like that's just kind of like standard fan service when it comes to I trust you. Now, however, the next entry, I will accept because I'm pretty sure it's what made us stop reading it.
It's 100% the chapter that made us stop reading that, which is Matsuri's mom licking her fingers and then feeling down her son's underpants to feel what genitals he had. Horrifying moment. Then we have from Eden Zero. On top of that, he inserted a bomb into my rectum. Classic moment. Everyone arguing and being incompetent after Kawaki escaped, and the Bakugan users of Hinata and Himawari just being ignored. Great moment. All of the various revelations of Velio, the mayor, and the Hunters Guild all rushed through in quick succession due to the series' impending cancellation. Good time. And then Ajuna revealing that even without her powers affecting her, she had truly fallen in love with Shura despite everything he did for her, or did to her.
There are a lot of good choices here.
Yeah.
But I think if I'm being honest with myself in terms of like the impact that each of them had on me, if a moment makes me stop reading a series, then I think that's gonna do it. So I'm gonna go with Matsuri's mom just randomly molesting him. So.
Yeah. Look. On top of that, he inserted a bomb into my rectum. Classic moment. Classic moment. Maybe the moment of WMR this year, just because of how much outside of the actual podcast stuff led into it. But that said, anytime I think about ITLC, I will immediately think about Seikon being like, I'm gonna get you. You killed my brother. Literally in the same chapter. For him, it's the same day, I think. Every time I think about it, it fucking makes me laugh. He has like a big dumb expression on his face while he does it. Holy shit, Saquon was the best.
Yeah.
The audience, by the way, picked on top of that. He inserted a bomb into my rectum, which perfectly
understandable. Definitely.
Great moment. We had the best 2-page spread. Luffy, Zoro, Law, and Kid, and Killer face off. The chapter 1000 2-page spread, I should say.
God, why didn't I look at this ahead of time?
Should have. I was like, Nick must have checked this out and saw Chapter 1000 happened this year, right? Tsukasa's dying breath beneath the stars from Dr. Stone. We have Stanley undressing and lighting a cigarette. Undressing is a strong way of phrasing that. He takes off
his cowl.
I was like, when did he get naked?
Look,
him lighting a cigarette.
Just because you guys are trying to get Dr. Zeno to click on this image.
He's like, for science, I should investigate this. Click, 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 click.
A good scientist leaves no stone unturned.
Do you want to die? The 2-page spread of like Y-Man screaming to them. We have the basically the Kinshaha from MASH to Innocent Zero. The Union versus Under 2-page spread. The Demon Slasher Infinite Slash. It just happened actually pretty recently in Black Clover. And then the 4-page spread of the roadmap from the Stone to the Moon Rocket in Dr. Stone. Those were the big nominees.
Yeah. Some of these nominees are wrong, by the way. But out of the ones that are here, I am going to go with the 2-page spread from Undead Unluck, the 2-page color spread of the. It looks really cool, and it's just, I like the way that it splits into each of their faces.
Yeah, I am gonna go with the pseudo 2-page spread. It's not, I guess, fully a 2-page spread, but the shot of the supernovas and Kaido and Big Mom was such a fucking cool visual. Like, that was what you were hoping for in chapter 1000, and it was pretty awesome. The audience, by the way, picked that one as well. So good stuff.
Cool.
Best twist now, Nick. This one is interesting. Let's say that. Rain is a triple liner from Mashle, Magic and Muscles. Kafka reveals himself to be Kaiju number 8 in Kaiju number 8. Magna, of all people, shows up to defeat Dante in Black Clover. Joel uses his wristwatch to transmit Y-Man's broadcast to trigger the petrification device in order to repetrify the world in Dr. Stone. Queen, revealing his Brachiosaurus neck and tail are connected like a snake that could separate the rest of the body from one piece.
Well, I'll call it more a gag than a twist, but...
Ishin is a woman, revealed just recently in Undead Unluck. Aoyama is a traitor and was quirkless beforehand, and the Cheese fake out from early in the series having been a false fake out. And then finally, Star and Stripes booby trapping New Order into rebelling against other quirks. Also,
it's Joel using the wristwatch to cause the petrification to engulf the world.
Yeah, because that was a fucking awesome scene.
Look, there were some unexpected occurrences that happened, definitely. Like the Magna thing. But in terms of like talking about a twist, like, oh my god, I didn't see that coming, but now that I see that it's happened, yeah, that makes perfect sense. And it is a wonderful resolution to this. The audience picked Queen's Brachiosaurus. It was a joke, guys. It was a joke.
I have been told that there were some last-minute votes that changed stuff that looked otherwise certain, and I have to feel like this was one of them. That like a bunch of people voted for that one because like it's so funny or whatever. But I'm like, yeah, no, it's 100% Joel in the wristwatch in my mind.
Look, it's really funny, but it's not the best twist. Is all I'm saying.
Next up, Nick, best fight of the year. We have the Supernovas versus the Emperors from One Piece. We have Hoshina with some help from Mina and Kokoro against Kaiju number 10. We have Magna versus Dante. Andy, Fuko, Shen, and Mui versus Fang. We have Robin versus Black Maria. Yorin McMahon versus the Assassins and Spy Family. The verbal battle between Tokiyuki and Sadamune in Elusive Samurai. And then Fuko versus Spring in Undead Unluck. And I will say off the bat, there are quite a few really, really good ones in here.
Yes. I can't give it to Fuko versus Spring because that fight's not over yet.
Yes.
I would feel bad about doing so. The stuff with Fang was really cool. I did like why isn't that a twist? Shen becomes a freaking Yongshi.
That should have been on there. Shen actually dies was a bigger twist than a lot of the other stuff.
Come on, guys. We talked about really liking Magna and Dante, but I don't know. I think in terms of like just pure enjoyment in the moment. It was unfortunately abbreviated because the fight split off in a way that I don't even know what much you can count it as a single fight. But I'm gonna go with the Supernovas versus the Emperors because I just remember how big that felt when it was happening and how it felt like, oh yeah, you said like this is gonna be a big fight, and then it really did feel like that for about a month of One Piece before it split off. And depending on how you look at it, maybe it's still going, but in terms of how it
everything's
was just
divided
that
from
fight,
that part, yeah.
right. If you think about it in terms of just how that group fight went, that was really cool in terms of like the way that they resolve stuff not by beating the emperors, but by splitting them up, by knocking Big Mom off of the roof, and all the effort that it took them to do that. It was really good.
Yeah. I really want to call attention to Hoshida versus Kaiju number 10 as being a really fucking cool fight. Because that was awesome, where Hoshida just basically kind of like continues to take down this thing over and over again and really kind of like endeared himself as a character. I have to call attention to that because it's 100% the Supernovas versus the Emperors for One Piece. That fight is so fucking hype in every stretch of the imagination. It lived up to everything it had built up to. Like when you saw those characters interact, like there's so many cool techniques and fights and just big moments. It has the great laugh moment of all the three captains all choosing to play chicken to avoid to see who will dodge Big Mom's fire attack, and none of them doing it, so they all have the big stupid face as they lean backwards. Just a great thing, but I did want to call attention to the Hoshida fight because that was legitimately a really, really good fight. That's just not going to get that attention because the Supernova versus the Emperor is the best one. The audience picked it as well. It's unanimous. Everyone agrees that's a phenomenal fight. Most improved character, Nick. We have Guraku from Ayakashi Triangle, Margaret from Mashle Magic and Muscles, Shen from Undead Unluck, Magna from Black Clover, Naputaku from Magu-chan, Andy from Undead Unluck, Chikara from Undead Unluck, and Katori from World Trigger.
It's a bit of an odd one, I feel, because it really depends on how you look at it. Like, God, I think that I can't really gauge Guraku personally, because I haven't read a lot of Ayakashi Triangle since we dropped it. Margaret, I think it like only just barely been really introduced last year in order to call her most improved.
I think a large part of it ends up being her getting a lot of showcase time, having it revealed that she was a female character, which was appreciated in a Shonen Jump manga, having her be funny and weird in the same way Mash is. I think those play a lot
into dipping the shrimp, and Mash saying this person is truly Mash.
Yeah, he's like eating fucking cream puffs all the time. Yeah. I'm gonna have to unfortunately give it to Naputaku as like an obviously one, because I think it was still at the point last year where I was like, Magu-chan is a one joke series. If it's not Magu-chan doing something funny, this series has nothing. And now I want to hold Naputaku and hold him and tenderly kiss him and tell him he's the best and he deserves everything in life because he's the best child in the world. He is eternal and everything.
When plushie merch for this series inevitably becomes available, we're gonna have to get you into Naputaku.
I think I might have to. I don't know if we're gonna get it. I don't know how the series is gonna do long term. I may commission someone to make one. If someone knows someone, send me a message because I fucking I love Naputaku so much now.
Yeah. So, God, I don't remember how I felt about Naputaku before.
You liked him more than I did. I very specifically was the one who said this was going to be like a one. Like I thought Magu-chan was a one character series. It was just all about Magu-chan. I think you actually liked Naputaku more.
So I don't think that I can in good conscience say Naputaku because I think that I already did like him.
Yeah.
That said, he did have a great year, and he was right, very rightfully crowned.
Yes.
So
put that crown on him.
Oh, right. So Katori showed that she was human and had good opinions about video games in this year, I guess. I guess what it comes down to for me is either Margaret or Chikara, honestly.
Okay.
And I think I'm going to go with Chikara because I think that Chikara was more established prior to the new year. Like, just because of because Chikara was actually introduced like pretty early on Undead Unluck, wasn't he?
I'm sorry, say it again.
Chikara was actually introduced relatively early in Undead Unluck, right?
I mean, in comparative sense, it was probably within the first year, but I mean, it was 4 arcs into Undead Unluck. It's just the series moves at a crazy fast pace. I don't know.
Well, I'm pretty sure that he was actually around last year, and it's hard to tell because we weren't, covering it at that time. But so in terms of like a character that like was better, then I think that's got to be him. Whereas Margaret, I mean, hadn't been around long enough, I think, to have an opinion of her this time last year. So it's tricky. All right. It's my personal award.
Yeah. Now, Nick, it's the Bleach Memorial Best Severed Limb Award. The audience saying Hoshino cuts off Kaiju number 10's arm as he's about to get punched. Hoshino cutting Kaiju number 10's arm to pieces.
It's not the same.
Yeah. Luck cuts off the arm of the one mid-ranked demons as it's preparing an attack from Black Clover.
I don't even remember that happening. But okay.
Juez losing her arm in her fight with Billy.
I mean, if you want to have something that actually has consequences, she's still got an artificial arm.
As far as actual Bleach, you lose your arm, that feels like it. All right, well, we'll get to it. The hotel owner gets his hand sawed off by the murderer in the O'Hara case from LC.
That's one of my front runners, personally.
Ano An loses their other arm to Rip in Undead Unluck.
That's pretty brutal.
Yeah.
I believe when it happens. So
Andy loses his hand after Top runs across the world and high fives Andy's hand off, and his hand is giving a thumbs up as it happens. And then Hawkins losing his left arm to Killer. There were a lot of arms lost this year.
Look, aren't you guys glad?
This is a great award category because it wasn't until I read it I was like,
everyone had doubts last year.
A lot of characters lost arms.
Oh, what a wonderful just summary of stuff that happened when you look at it that way. Look, I think that there is some stuff on here that this runs the gambit too. There's the stuff that's unintentionally funny, like this, ITLC. There is the stuff that is actually legitimately kind of brutal, like some of the stuff that happens in Undead Unluck. And there's just some of the very Bleach-like, honestly, stuff that did happen in Kaiju number 8, where it doesn't matter, I'm punching while getting my arm cut off kind of thing. But for me, the most memorable moment is just the absurdly gratuitous Top runs across the earth and high fives Andy's hand off while he's giving a thumbs up. It's so stupid.
It is a supremely awesome moment. However, this is the Bleach Memorial Best Severed Limb Award. And I think in the spirit of Bleach, a series where arms were cut off and no one gave a fuck, I feel it is only fitting I give it to Hawkins losing his left arm to Killer in a scene that nobody gave a single fucking shit about.
It's consequential.
Everyone's like, oh, I guess Hawkins lost his left arm. Who gives a shit?
Who could have seen this coming, that the way to attack the guy would be to attack the thing that the person that he's transferring the damage to doesn't have that body part.
Yeah.
By the way, I will point out, Kid not having an arm was not in the best twists because no one thought that was a twist.
Everyone's kind of saw this one coming. The audience, by the way, agreed with you that Andy's scene is the arm. Honestly, I wish there had been a separate category, like fucking coolest moment or something like that, because if that was the case, I feel like that scene from Undead Unluck would have been it for me. Just the running across the world to high five Andy's hand off is so fucking awesome.
There's some great stuff that happened this year. Yeah.
Then we have Best Villain. We have Donovan Desmond from Spy Family. All for One from My Hero. Ashikaga from Elusive
Oh,
Samurai.
Yes, All for One has just gotten worse this year. I'm sorry. It was a bad year for All for One. Okay.
Yeah. Ashikaga from Elusive Samurai. Stanley Snyder from Dr. Stone. Sadamune from Elusive Samurai. Margaret from Mashle. God from Undead Unluck. And Spring from Undead Unluck.
God's a really good one there, honestly.
We've
when
never met him.
We haven't. All you know about God really is just what he's done from the perspective of the people he's done it to. You know what? I did really get drawn into some of the way that he was being built up, or she, or they, or God.
Yes.
So was being built up just from the shit that they've done to people. And that's really all you need to know for why people want to kill God in this series. It's because they're an asshole.
Yeah, God sucks.
But I'm not going to give my best villain to them because I honestly think that while they were a villain, Stanley was actually a really good villain.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm of three minds at the moment. Stanley, as you said, really, really great villain. God is probably the character I hate the most, which is ultimately in like a wrestling sense, he's the character has the most heat. Like, I fucking hate God. I want to see every character get to punch the shit out of God. Spring has been a really compelling antagonist. I don't know if it was best antagonist, maybe I'd feel more easily able to just slam dunk Spring in. But I guess I already did I give Spring my character? Yeah, I gave Spring my best new character. So I guess I will agree with you. Stanley is really, really effective as an antagonist. And he has the added bonus of, even within the year, coming back now as an anti-villain, like sort of a anti-hero character. And I've mentioned before, I fucking love when that happens. Like, it's one of my favorite tropes in storytelling. So I'm super, super excited about Stanley, and I'm going to give it to him.
By the way, just for this category purely, I want to point out some of the people that did not make the cut for top nominations.
Okay.
Which were Billy from Undead Unluck.
He was a really good one this year.
Yeah. Lycaon from Hunters Guild Red Hood, which...
Who?
The big werewolf guy. You know, the one who vanishes and doesn't get to do anything. Megakula from Black Clover.
Okay.
The one that, definitely I felt like the one that you had the most investment in what, were actually the ties between the character and the devil. Innocent Zero from Mashle.
How did Margaret... Well, I guess she was also an antagonist.
Yeah. But honestly... I would have actually probably gone for this one if they had made the cut. Shiro Shiratori from Nine Dragons Ball Parade. Just because they were being so absurdly evil over baseball.
How did Kaido not make this list in any way, shape, or form?
Or Big Mom, or anyone really from One Piece. Orochi, none of them made the cut.
Hold on, I can't alter this list. I want to just take out All for One and be like, Kaido, damn it, it won't let me. Ninja's protected the list too well. All right, Nick. That's going to wrap it up for 2021 with just one final question. There were a lot of good series this year. Maybe even a lot of great series. But what was the best series of this year? Yeah. Undead Unluck was a very, very good series this year. It has been compelling. The last 3 months of Undead Unluck have been pretty much almost not universally, but if you look at our actual MVP selections, it pretty much is either one of our best character or character of the week. For 3 weeks, for a couple months back. At least one of us has it as our character or chapter of the week. However, Nick. Sometimes you have to think, what's the best series and what's the one you enjoyed the most? And when you think about that, what series did we enjoy more than Boruto and the antics of Code and how every chapter makes itself a little
a troll pick.
No, it's Undead Unluck. But for a moment, I wanted someone to be like, no. I didn't want to call attention to the fact that Boruto was my favorite series to recap this year, if only because...
Honestly, I'm surprised you didn't go for ITLC under that logic, because they reached a certain point where it was our favorite thing to talk about every week. So
God, I really did love it. I really did. Such a good series.
I think we both turned the corner on that one from hating to loving, ironically, really quickly too. So
it really endeared itself pretty quick. Once you got over the weird premise, it really then just got stupid. And that was where it was at its most enjoyable. By the way, for everybody who's listening, the audience has more awards than just that. We can't do all these awards because this podcast is going to go for 17 hours at that point.
Yeah.
But there are a ton of other options out there. Best new character design, best cover page, best arc, storyline, all of these things. And the audience has a bunch of nominations for that. And you can go check that out. All you have to do is go to our Google Doc, which you can find in our Discord. Ninja will link it in a bunch of different places on there. And I highly recommend go checking those out, because there are a lot of awesome categories there that it would be a nice way to like reflect on.
Well, I think that about covers it, doesn't it?
I think it does. I think that does it. It has been a good year. And you know what? I think I have been... I will say this honestly. 2021, as you mentioned at the start of the year, has been a significant year, and I think both of our lives for various different reasons. I will say it is a year where I have only grown to really appreciate having a friend like Nick in my life, and I just wanted to share that before we go into the new year, and say it's oh, what? Now I'm going to turn it on you. I'm like, yeah. Now, Nick, watch out. If you turn around and it's Goldberg and just spears you, and I'm just like, at Hell in a Cell, we're fighting for this. I have the money in the bank over here. I don't know why I would risk it. I already have it. But no, I just wanted to share that this was, I think, a very good year, and it has made me very eternally grateful to have a good friend like that.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate you too, and I appreciate having someone to share the things that I've been through in my life, the way that I've been able to share them with you.
Yeah. And I will say then to our audience, I hope all of you enjoyed yourselves. I hope all of you enjoyed Weekly Manga Recap this year. I hope everybody then is also looking forward to 2022 and all the crazy stuff that happens there. I think we're going to have a lot of fun in the year.
Yes. And then, of course, join us in December of 2022 / January of 2023 so you can find out how Nick can't remember anything. So
Chapter 1000, Nick.
Chapter 1000.
I know we called it out at the time, too. I was like, well, you're definitely not going to forget Chapter 1000 was this year.
No, all I did remember was the exact thing that happened in Mashle.
Bye, everybody.